Welcome to my humble abode. I am Yorkie the Talespinner, and this Tales Over Coffee, a morning show where we start the day together with a narrative tale. In the hopes we may welcome a blessed day. This is Suzerain, the tale of Anton Rain's rise through an attempt to maintain power in a nation roughly based on a Cold War Eastern European nation. This is one I already own, but it was also on this month's Humble Bundle. And so, let me assure you, this will also be a humble opinion. I'll give my humble opinion at the end. Let's start a new game. Now this is a pure narrative tale, I should say. There's no voiceover or anything. You are my enslavement and my freedom. You're my flesh. And my burning like a rolling... I missed that because of this thing. Calm down. Hopefully you saw it. 1908, Kingdom of Sordland. You opened your eyes to this world. You came from... What are we going to design ourselves as? The first steps are designing it yourself, your history. I think we're going to go for someone who came up rough and grew hard. An impoverished family in the city of Dyer. Your parents named you Anton. As the only child of a farmer, you spent your childhood among wheat fields. Life was not easy. You were too poor to afford a good education. The Rain family was caring, regardless of the economically dire situation. Your parents always did their best to support you. Past. Rough, but loved at the start. During a history class at school, the bell started to ring unexpectedly. You heard a loud commotion outside. As everyone tried to figure out what was going on, do you want to come behind? That's fine. What was going on, the principal announced the historic revolution. The kingdom was no more, the Republic of Sordland was born. What's going on? Concerning time for most of us. After graduating, you passed in 1926, you see the years pass. Passed the university exam with high marks. Even though your family was poor, the public education system made it possible to go to university. You had the opportunity to choose between several subjects. I think law field. The state university. I can afford a posh one. During the first year you attended lecture with David Whiskey. He was a well-known diplomat from the foreign ministry and the son of the president. After observing the hall in silence, he explained how the Supreme Court is obstructing justice in Sordland. He stated that laws should be applied fairly, and that even members of the Supreme Court are subject to the same laws. I don't believe that is true for a start. Soldiers enter the campus in the evening ahead of the first election. Many were in shock as the uniformed men created a security cordon and started arresting the teachers. Proof of what I said, of what Anton believed, that was not the way of the world. A group of students started gathering in protest, along with your best friend, Peter Beckton. You decided to avoid any confrontation with the soldiers, and maybe work our way from the inside. You heard a loud announcement that echoed through the campus. General Ludrin declared martial law in order to restore the administration. Please stand back and disperse to your rooms. You quickly made your way towards your dormitory, avoiding the scene. Once again, we see evidence of power taken in the hands of a few, and like the look of that. As you entered the room, you heard screams coming from the outside. Let's see what's happening. Well, the soldiers locked the doors. It was a gloomy year. The arrested teachers were replaced by those that promoted conformism to the state. All sorts turned a blind eye to the things that were happening. You didn't want to stay idle and decided to join a political debate group. The dozens of debates helped you hone your oratory skills, while also helping you grow your network. Even though the debates were pretty heated between different groups, you all grew from sharing ideas. In one of the meetings, Petra introduced you to one of his friends, Monica, who was a volunteer with the Sordland League of Women. You're immediately attracted to her diligence. Straightforward, beautiful. I like that. He liked that, did Anton. He saw it in himself. The politically charged environment led you to join the Young Swords, the Nationalists. The radio relayed that the communists, they were at 1928 now already, 20 years old. The communist General Ricard surrounded Ludrin and his troops, demanding their surrender. They refused and heavy fighting broke out across the country. I just couldn't believe it. The army was fighting among themselves. Sordland plunged into chaos. Ricard's sudden attack caused even more bloodshed in the country. He seemed different compared to the fascist Ludrin. In your opinion, however, he was more of the same. So you participated in a protest march. You were chanting, "End the chaos. We want stability. Only a stable country can grow in power." You were marching against Ricard. The students and soldiers supporting the coup gathered a few hundred meters away. Many socialists were among them. You knew something was going to happen. Let's see. Let's witness. There was a massive clash between the two sides. Soldiers began to beat the students. Tanks started rolling forward. In this chaotic moment, you saw a young girl about to get run over by a tank. Again, a demonstration of power, and more fool her for being in the way. Warn her, but don't run in the way. For all your efforts were in vain, you never forgot her face. Crushed as it was. The clashes escalated into a full-blown civil war. The horrors made you isolate yourself for a while. Monica helped you cope, and love grew between the two of you. However, it was a difficult time for love. The chaos must end. 1929, 21 years old. The charismatic Colonel Tarquin Sol orchestrated a sudden coup and brought an end to the chaos. As I said, power in the hand of a few, applied appropriately, brings stability. He wrote a new constitution and restored stability. People saw him as a saviour. He formed the United Sordland Party and ran as presidential candidate in the first ever election. Fought the party. Fought the power. USP won the election by a large majority. After graduation, you kept seeing Monica and noticed her interest to marry. However, a letter arrived from the military calling you to fulfill your compulsory service. Time to serve your national duty. A devastating civil war broke out in the neighbouring country, Welland. The distinguished Major, Joseph Lancia, ordered you to lead your squad on a border patrol mission. Very cold winter night, and you began marching out of Gumran Outpost. You could see your breath. So cold. After several hours of marching through the snowy hills, distant noises were heard. Visibility was too low to confirm the source, and the squad crawled forward in formation and found a spot to observe. The group of refugees had made it beyond the border fence. No. That is not appropriate. You are breaking the law. We escorted them back. The refugees were in despair when they realised that you were taking them back to the border. Screams and protests ensued as they were restrained. You delivered them to the border guards. After several months of military service, your duties ended and you went back to civilian life. You and Monica decided to share your lives together. After receiving the blessing of her parents, a ceremony was held in Hall Sword. During the same year, you were offered a high-paying job at the governing United Sordland Party. It was important to start your career on a good foot, so you accepted it. Working easiest path to power. Absolutely. As I said, power in the right hands applied well is stability and growth. You became the legal assistant to one of many experienced members of the Assembly. You worked long and hard, staying late at night and going through hundreds of pages of legal documents for climbing the ladder. Sol strengthened the Republic by removing the institutions and symbols of the former kingdom from society. Things were also looking up for the country as the massive economic boom continued, and people were the happiest they had been in a decade. Election time came, and it was decided President Tarquin Sol was elected once more. The ongoing legal battle. It took her at 34 years old now. 26. Between the Justice Ministry and the Supreme Court put you under a lot of stress. Your significant contribution to the legal case triggered an invitation to meet President Tarquin Sol himself, who offered you a key position, and so Anson grew in power. He has become the youngest member of the Assembly. Absolutely. We are aware, of course, that there is a power play on his part here, perhaps seeing us as a puppet, but if you work your way from within, you may attain greater power. As the youngest MP, it was difficult to connect with the influential in the circle, of course. You needed allies, and so you brought Pieter as your right-hand man. The birth of your son, Frank, provided a brief moment of joy and relief. You sacrificed family to improve your position within the party. Along with Pieter, you have done great things to cement your position in the party. Meanwhile, at home, Monica and Frank felt your absence. A shame. But power grants us what we need as well. At the same time, President Sol increased his authority over the years. His growing ego started to cause strife within the party. The cracks began to show. President Sol barely secured a majority in the election against the opposition leader. 37 now, in 1945. Over the past year, people were growing discontent with corruption and the worsening quality of life. Meanwhile, calls for the United Sordland Party Congress became louder as a leadership struggle started to brew. You kept supporting the president. The contender for the party leadership was Ewald Alfonso, a reformist and talented business magnate, with a growing popularity within the party. You were trying to secure votes for President Sol, who noticed your loyalty and approached you with a lucrative deal. I had a meeting with him. The President offered you the position of Minister of Justice and Law in the next government if you backed him in the upcoming votes. Absolutely. More power, more strength, more stability. The Party Congress was nothing short of impressive. The banners of the United Sordland were decorating every single spot. Thousands of influential political figures, lobbyists and benefactors gathered for this turning point. The voting began and we voted for Sol. Unfortunately, Sol lost the leadership vote to Ewald Alfonso with a small margin. During the Congress, Sol announced his retirement from politics. The systems he had established were to stay much longer. His achievements wouldn't be forgotten. But trouble, this is a chaotic time. And we have misaligned. We're going to have to grow again. A month later, your daughter was born, Monica named Diana. She motivated you during a tumultuous period in the party. The general elections were approaching. The United Sordland Party was under the new leadership of Ewald Alfonso. You realign. Join the party effort and campaign for him. During the general elections, the main opposition leader was embroiled in a sex scandal with his secretary. Fortunate for him. We're 41 now. He's replaced by the strong opposition figure of Franz Richter. So the damage had been done. An extensive privatization program proposed by Ewald Alfonso secured an election victory. of the United Sordland Party. Over the next years, you tried all that was necessary to climb the ladder, gaining power, strength. The presidency of Ewald Alfonso saw many bold reforms, but was followed by a serious economic recession. The other parties announced their bids for the 1953 election, but the unfair system hampered all opposition to win. Worried that the reputation may take a bashing. Together with Peter, your presence in the USP grew and you became the face of a new wing of the party. You effectively took over leadership as President Alfonso lost control of the country. I advised him to step down. Backroom deals. Backroom deal. He didn't take your advice seriously and started to reshuffle his cabinet, but most of his inner circle abandoned him. Your diplomatic attitude made your party vote you in as the leader. Following this, you announced that you would be running for president in the general election, with Peter as your running mate. It's your turn.
With the study of student embassy, I was starting it.
After visiting every city and town during the campaign, you made a speech on television. You promised to preserve national values, stability, strength, unity, and a nation. Great nation of Sordland, due to the incompetent leadership, enemies both internal and external are influencing our glorious nation. Today, more than ever, we need to unite under one flag and protect our values. Great Sordland. The broadcast ended. On election day, millions went out and cast their votes. It was time to face the truth. Chapter 1. And that is just to build your character. You can set yourself as you wish here, to a degree. It seems you can't change from being a white boy, a white guy, but there you go. Flat cap, yes. There we go. A business suit for a president. I think the realism of the office window will do. Election promises. As Anton Rain, you have made many promises to the people of Sordland in order to gain their votes. They must be considered very carefully. Sordland's economy had been based on a planned doctrine since its formation until the former president, Ewald Alfonso, enacted free market reforms. Now the country finds itself between two different economic systems. And we promote a planned and carefully controlled economy. The intensifying global rivalry between capitalist Acacia in the west and communist Cortana in the east is opening new diplomatic possibilities. Sordland could take steps to align itself closer to one. No, both of those are dangerous governments. In recent years, Bludish, Wezek, and Agnolian immigrants flocked to Sordland due to relaxed immigration laws enacted by Ewald Alfonso. Another source of chaos. Of growth as a nation, yes, but possibly chaos. We will tighten immigration. Term focus. We have also promised to focus on a certain extensive subject within our first term. The people expect us to solve the negative situations within this topic while providing overall improvement to related policies. Health, education, law and enforcement, and military. Law and enforcement. Increased crime is pushing law enforcement to their limits, not just the court, okay? Or the military protects the country from hostile threats. While some see it as a massive financial burden, others see it as a critical deterrent. It can also be an economic asset. But I think stability demands law enforcement. Your promises will be remembered and they will have consequences. Are you sure? Yes. 2 weeks have passed since we won the election. And now I was about to be sworn in as the 4th president of Sordland. Thousands were watching the inauguration ceremony and cheering my name, Anton Rain. The die was cast, and my story began. In the distance, the Maroon Palace stood on top of the famous Hill of Pride. I had no way of knowing what future awaited me there. And you see, we have some way of looking at that. I'm not remembering how. Probably in here. Might. We'll look later. I looked at my family, my son and daughter, Frank and Diana. Were next to Monica, my wife. Her eyes were glimmering with pride. Then I turned toward the key people who made it all possible. Of course, each individual promised an important position in my cabinet. As my thoughts slowly faded away, the reality of the situation dawned on me. Orzo Hawker, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, was waiting on me. The time for the oath has come, said Orzo. I am ready. Please repeat after me. I do solemnly swear that I will respectfully execute the office of President of Sordland, and to the best of my ability preserve and protect and defend. The people and the Constitution of the Republic of Sordland. You may now deliver your inauguration speech, Mr. President. It's an honor. There. Dear citizens of Sordland. The crowd looks very eager to listen to me. The idea of unity. For many generations, this country has its long history. Have kept us tied to an idea, the idea of unity and of people's rights for a free and prosperous life. We stand together, we prevail. In the past, there have been times of survival, times of conflict and economic hardship too. But whenever we stood together, we prevailed. The future awaits us. Sordland is above all in the world. Sordland, Bravas. It is time for a united and powerful Sordland once again. Hundreds of thousands cheered. They were shouting my name in unison. I felt the responsibility, the power, and the burden all at the same time. Raise a fist and yell. Raise my fist in the air, which triggered a huge applause. I took a moment to look at the people of Sordland, burned this moment into my memory. One of the presidential guards came by to notify me that it was time to leave. I made my way to the leading car in the motorcade. The presidential state car was a jet black Cadillac with flags of Sordland above the front headlights. Next to it, a man was holding the door. Serge Wagner. Hello, Mr. President. Still under the influence of the speech I made, hearing my new title made me smile. If you allow me to introduce myself, I am Serge, your new driver. Nice to meet you, Serge. It's an honor. He respectfully bowed his head before opening the car door and gesturing inside. I entered the car. We will be heading toward the palace. The motorcade began to move. On the way, Serge proceeded to explain his duties as a driver. As minutes passed by, I found myself lost in the thoughts again, barely paying attention to what he was saying. He suddenly made a gesture towards the Now closer, palace. Isn't it beautiful? The Maroon Palace. Ah, that click worked. The Maroon Palace is where the executive branch of Swordish government is situated. It was constructed to serve as the summer residence of Albrecht Renan, but quickly became a structure of political importance. The turning point was when the Kingdom of Sordland was announced on the balcony of the palace, reflecting the shift of government power from Elri to Holsord during the transition period. The Maroon Palace received its name from the maroon painted exterior walls. It has 100 rooms and several wings housing different branches of the executive government. Underneath the structure is a highly secure situation room where the president is safe from any danger and evaluates any security crisis. He was right, sunlight glinted off the palace's many maroon-coloured domes. It was so bright that I had to look away. Every time I look at it, I am reminded of my duty to this nation. So do I, Serge. It's a beating heart for the nation, after all. Well said, Mr. President. The car drove past the majestic gates, continued uphill to the entrance, and stopped in front of the doors. Serge got out of the car and opened the door for me. Have a great day, Mr. President. A Morgna West Court. It refers to a famous Swordish phrase from the times of revolution. A Morgna West Court affected da, which meant morning will come, victory close. Vectance is da, echo it back. I made my way upstairs through the extravagant corridors of the palace, and marble and engraved wooden finishes decorated the interior. My steps echoed in the colossal halls. The guards bowed their heads in respect as I opened the massive doors to my office. You see there is a situation here. I can close that now. There are other places around. Not much to see there right now, but you'll see there are some with reports. In fact, there are a lot of reports right now, and that is news. Let's turn to the news. The Holsord Post. Rain spoke of unity. President Anton Rain has been sworn into duty in a great ceremony in Holsord. Thousands have attended the ceremony where President Rain has met his supporters for the first time after his election. In his inauguration, Rain spoke of a unity, bringing focus to people's right to a free and prosperous life. For many generations, this country and its long history have kept us tied to an idea of unity. He said, Sordland today. Most sold newspaper. Party Sordland. The new president was sworn into office by the Chief Justice Urso Hawker. A great win for the USP and Anton Rain, who managed to get 37% of the general vote. In a country like America, where there are basically two parties, that seems low, but given that there are multiple parties here, it's not that surprising. The first congratulations came from Kizaro Kibna of the National Front Party. Runner-up of the general vote, the PFJP didn't concede until the last minute, but the results were clear in several hours then. Thousands of supporters have gathered in the streets of Daya, chanting campaign slogans, waving flags and displaying USP party banners to display unwavering support for the newly elected president. The public mood is very positive in the city, from all accounts on the ground. The city is celebrating a Daya-born president with humble roots, now sitting in the Maroon Palace. Blackhaven time. The new assembly begins duty. President Anton Rain has been elected 4th president of Sordland in 7th Swordish election. The United Sordland Party has won the election on Sunday with just over 37% of the vote, while Franz Richter, the leader of the People's Freedom and Justice Party, would gain just over 20%. Kizara Kibne, head of the right-wing National Front Party, third place with just 11%. The Communist Party of Sordland and the Workers' Party of Bludia both won just below 10% of the vote, failing to pass the 10% election threshold. The new term begins with the opposition of PFJP and NFP under the USP government. The unrepresented votes below the threshold resulted in the USP taking 52% of votes in the Grand National Assembly, giving them lawmaking power. The new seat numbers have been finalised as follows: USP 130, PFJP 70, NFP 40, Independents 10. And we have the Radical newspaper. Another USP presents: how many times will people fall for the same trap? We've seen this before with Colonel Sol, who supposedly saved this country and brought stability in times of chaos. His stability, however, meant a life of oppression. Any opposing voices were silenced, of course, and many were persecuted. That's a harsh word to use. Next was Alfonso, who was elected as the Liberal reformer, to bring change to the USP and Sordland. Seeing his unfortunate inability, his own cabinet resigned. As the third USP candidate becomes president, it is high time to realise that real change won't come from their party. And economists. After the recent successful mega infrastructure project from United Cortana and Valsland, the world is warming up to the idea of as a source of growth and employment. Is there any truth to this success? Our investment analysis indicates that infrastructure investments can be fruitful in the short term, but even more so in the long term, especially if they focus on linking economic nodes that business logistics depend on. This is, however, the first step. The crux of the matter is diversification of investment, where the government supports employment and growth. It is key to help private business and government contracts, tax breaks, and political support in order to create a self-sufficient and dynamic economy. The government's role in Sordland should be to integrate the world economy and reap the benefits of global trade. Economic growth and income equality in the country won't be fixed otherwise. And Solonomics. A new era begins for Sordland, and it holds many economic questions that will need to be answered by President Ray. Our top economic analysts, with consultation from the National Business Council, have released a comprehensive report on the performance of the past 20 years. A certain section of the report stands out. The last 2 4-year plans of the plan doctrine created a budget deficit and a clear reduction of the industrial production output. This was specifically due to mismanagement and inefficient bureaucracy. The year-on-year growth budget balance and production index values indicate that the 2 most productive consecutive years had been when privatisation programme of Alfonso began in 1949. Our editorial team, with the help of experts like Michael Avon, Edith Agnock, have come to the conclusion the recession was not actually caused by Ewald Alfonso's bold privatisation programme, but by the drastic obstructions of state executives hindering the plan. Well, that's your view. President Rain must make advance of the planned economic proponents around him, and with a pinch of salt, otherwise he could find himself in the same spot as Tarquin's soul. Just because it is planned doesn't mean it has to be stupid. Let's see. Read the report from Lesbia. Congratulations from Prime Minister Alvarez. Prime Minister Alvarez congratulated you for the results and spoke about his hopes to have a beneficial partnership deal in the future. He sent his best wishes to the Sordish people and warned us about the threats of the encroaching Millennialist influence of United Cortana in the east, emphasizing the importance of unity in our continent. We can see more there. We won't just now because we're just doing a slight overview. Another nation, Velen. President Smolak sent his congratulations on the victory and wished for a cooperative future between Velen and Sordland, signaling a desire to normalise the diplomatic situation between the 2 countries. Other nations involved. Magnolia. Prime Minister Van Horten congratulated us on our election. and praised our party's stance on just and transparent elections. He signalled his wishes to continue the trade partnership between our countries as equal partners, opposed to earlier trade deals he believed gave Sordland an unfair advantage. There is no unfair advantage to us. Sordland. Congratulations from Chancellor Hegel. Chancellor Hegel sends his congratulations to your great victory and wished for closer cooperation between our countries in the future. Hegel signalled concessions from Vogtland in case of promising trade deals. He also congratulated the Swedish democracy for the successful elections and warned about the threat Acacia's growing influence poses in eastern Macopa. Let's see. Subject: the port of Lochhaven loses importance. The latest marine traffic report showed that the port of Lochhaven is no longer the busiest of the Macopa incontinent, falling behind to third position. While this is a negative indicator for our administration, Lochhaven still has the potential to shine again as a major trading centre. The port of Lochhaven is the largest port in Sordland and holds enormous importance for the economy, particularly as the main distribution centre linking the capital to inner parts of Sordland and the rest of the world. This major port will hopefully keep supporting possible economic upturn in the entire country. Investment projects indeed. And we have Avery. Lack of investment. The Mayor of Avery, Eric Neal, reports a lack of adequate infrastructure around Avery, which seriously undermines the attractiveness of Avery's investment climate. Foreign investors, particularly from Magnolia, are becoming hesitant to invest in the city. Meanwhile, according to the data published by the National Business Centre, around 90% of a company's total expenditures in England is absorbed by logistics costs, while in peer regions, this figure is below 10%. Well, it's like you're badly positioned, Avery. Low production in England. The report calls for attention to the alarmingly low levels of productivity growth in the region of England, where there were also high rates of food insecurity, malnutrition and rural poverty in inner parts of the region. And that's where we'll end this episode. We see the situation around us. Some nations seemingly supporting us so far, at least in word. That doesn't mean they will indeed. Some situations in the country itself. Think about economically. They're right to outline the problems of a planned economy, but just because it's planned doesn't mean it has to be. Now, this has also been a my humble opinion episode, as this is also from this month's Humble Bundle. How do I view this game? I love it. This is definitely just a narrative game, as you can see. If I'm going to talk about graphics, I'm going to give them a 7. They're nothing spectacular, but they do exactly what they need to do. Showing us a map of where things are occurring, links to situations we need, enough graphics on personal and personally involved items that we can see what's going on. World building, 10 out of 10. We've skipped a lot of what we can see. See the Codex of United Cortana, which we can look into perhaps next time. The background as built by the story, so I'll talk about storyline too, is wonderful. It's not that deep yet, but it will continue to deepen as you go through and face new and different threats and promises and challenges all the way through. I have to give that a 9 or a 10 as well. Controls, there's nothing to them. It's a narrative game. You're clicking on things. I'll give them a 7. They do exactly what's needed. Characterization, yes, again, and a 9 I'll give it. Maybe an 8, a 9 I think. As you'll see as we continue, the different characters around you have different wants, different needs. Who will you meet? Who will you support? Who will you oppose? All adding to the depth of the storyline. So I'll give the entire game as a whole a 9 out of 10. As a narrative game, I'm not going to say that it compares overall to, say, FIFA, Elder Scrolls 6, whenever if ever it comes out, whatever. It's not that kind of game. It's not meant to. It's a whole different game. They don't compare to this in terms of world building and storyline and intrinsic choices within the story. So, yes, I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. Now, my 4 questions. Is it worth $1.50 to cover its lot? Absolutely. Absolutely. Is it worth $12? Yes. I'm not sure the actual price. I think it's a relatively inexpensive budget game in itself. Which makes this a win, but not a super win, because you're not saving that much money on it. But it does justify, for me, the cost of the entire Humble Bundle this month. Is it something you need to add to come to the channel? I think you can see it's already here. So am I bringing it to the channel? Yes, this is the latest Tales Over Coffee. Join me next time as we begin our actual career. President Anton Rain of the nation of Sordland. Fairly well.